Live from Waterford and Dungarvan, this is Ireland's IMRO Local Station of the Year, WLR News.
Good afternoon, I'm Liz Reddy. Today's top stories. The Mayor of Waterford's called on all 32 councillors to come together to get next year's budget passed. The developer of a wind farm in County Waterford's withdrawn a planning application for the site. A government minister is defending Fine Gael TD Darragh Murphy's decision to hold down a second job while still claiming his full Dáil allowances. And in sport, former Waterford Crystal CEO John Foley has turned down the top position at the FAI. The Chief Executive of Waterford Council says all services will be cut to the bone if commercial rates aren't raised. Michael Walsh has proposed an increase of 5% to fill a hole in the local authority's finances. However, councillors have voted to continue lobbying the government for further funding, pushing a decision back until the 12th of December. Mr Walsh says services will suffer if the increase isn't accepted.
Do we want to exist on the basis that we're going to cut the bone, everything to the bone, end up delivering very poor services, generally speaking, and in a sense end up going nowhere quickly? And I think that's a very clear choice, and it is a political choice, and it's a matter for you as a council to make. My view would be very clearly, obviously, that we need to accept that we have to pay for services.
Michael Walsh says Waterford's business community needs to be reasonable.
I say it very simply and explicitly that it is not reasonable for any business community or any community to accept that we can continue to deliver services in an environment where there are phenomenal demands from the public and otherwise, increasing demands and really significantly increasing demands from the public, and that we can continue to provide those services and to drive Waterford forward for the business community, for society here in Waterford.
Meanwhile, the Mayor of Waterford has called on all 32 councillors to come together to get next year's budget passed. The council is lobbying the government for further funding to fill the hole in its finances. A once-off payment of €2 million was made by the government, but a gap of €1.3 million remains. Mayor John Pratt is a member of the controlling group on the council. His call immediately drew criticism from Fianna Fáil's John O'Leary.
There's an onus on 32 councillors to pass the budget. I will just put that out. I don't think it's not. It's not.
There's not an onus. There's always been an onus on the pact to pass a budget. And John, you've been part of that for the last 5 years.
Fine Gael's John Cummins says his party and Fianna Fáil have pulled on the blue jersey already.
My colleagues on this side of the chamber over here have lobbied the minister heavily. We have got €2 million in additional revenue for Waterford City and County Council for this year. No other local authority got any money as a contribution in lieu of the issue with Irish Water. And that's as a result of the significant lobbying because we pulled on the blue jersey. And now we're again being asked to put on the blue jersey.
Green Party councillor Mark O'Cassick says all councillors should be willing to speak to each other to get next year's budget passed.
While the CEO's door was open at all times, the government has remained closed, firmly closed. Indeed, some representatives have been happier to speak to us through the media rather than to pick up the telephone to us despite repeated invitations. It's my view that all members of this chamber have an obligation to serve the common cause of Waterford, and I'll remain open to speak to all and any in that cause while I have the privilege.
The developer of a wind farm in County Waterford has withdrawn a planning application for the site. Barnafadic Wind Farm in Ballyduff was found to be in breach of planning rules earlier this year due to operating with longer blade lengths than allowed. An enforcement notice by the council expired in September and the case now hinges on a court decision. Developer Barnafadic Sustainable Electricity Limited initiated High Court proceedings against the local authority. Fianna Fáil councillor James Tobin says he believes the company is waiting on national guidelines surrounding wind farms after it withdrew an application to retain the longer blades.
I'd be worried about maybe they'd be waiting for the guidelines that maybe the size of the blades will be increased as well as the setback distance. They withdrew their application for retention. They're operating illegally. So now how long can they wait before they reapply?
Senior planner Liam McGree says all parties are waiting on the court decision.
I think all parties accept that there is an issue to be addressed there, that the development as constructed is not compliant. So the question is whether or not they can apply for permission to retain it, or whether or not they need to make changes so as to be compliant with their original grant of planning permission. So they're currently trying to retain what they've already constructed, and that's a process that's still ongoing and still live, and it's before the courts at the moment. So until that's decided by the court, we don't know what the next step is.
A government minister is defending Fine Gael TD Dara Murphy's decision to hold down a second job while still claiming his full Dáil allowances. A Dáil committee's been asked to investigate his attendance over the last 2 years. Our political correspondent Sean Defoe reports.
Fine Gael has a Murphy problem. Whether it's comments on asylum seekers from Verona Murphy, the no confidence vote in Housing Minister Owen Murphy, or the Dáil attendance of TD Dara Murphy, all are drawing criticism, with Murphy, Dara Murphy that is, potentially facing an investigation by the Dáil's Members' Interest Committee. But Independent Minister Catherine Zappone has defended his decision to hold a full-time job as well as his Dáil seat.
I think the public really fully understand that really at any moment you could lose this job, and there are issues of financial security.
Dara Murphy, for his part, says he's always complied with the rules of Leinster House. Separately, Owen Murphy faces a motion of no confidence in the Dáil tomorrow. The government needs the support of independents Noel Grealish, Michael Lowry, Dennis Naughton and Peter Fitzpatrick to survive it. If it doesn't, it's a Christmas election, which Minister Richard Bruton says he isn't afraid of.
In many areas we'll be very strong, including in housing. So, bring it on, as I say. If people want a general election before Christmas, I've no problem with that.
But while Fine Gael TDs might rightly feel the victim of Murphy's Law lately, the Housing Minister is expected to survive the vote and the week. Sean Defoe, Leinster House.
A Waterford taxi company has become the first in Ireland to take bookings through Facebook Messenger. Rapid Cabs has launched the service ahead of the Christmas season. Eric O'Brien is the company's managing director. He explains how it works.
We have a Facebook chatbot, so you log onto our Messenger through Facebook. You select book a taxi, then it's a simple process where the chatbot will actually ask you, where are you? It'll know from your mobile number if you're a customer of ours in the past. It will give you past locations that we picked you up from, and it'll also give you a link to track your taxi. So you can actually watch your taxi through your mobile phone on Facebook Messenger and watch it arrive.
The Japanese gardens in Tramore have maintained visitor numbers so far this year, despite the national figure being down 10%. The Enchanted Garden Winter Light Festival will light up by night from this Friday until the 5th of January and will be open from 5 to 8 p.m. The Lafcadia Hearn Gardens celebrate the life journey of the Waterford man, who is Japan's greatest interpreter to the West, recently added to their offering with a new audio guide and authentic tea room. Agnes Aylward from the Tramore Development Trust says they continue to work hard to attract visitors.
Nationally, figures are 10% down. Fáilte Ireland are saying that, and particularly visitors from the UK are down. Our visitor numbers are not down, but we're still growing. But I think we would have grown more had we not had the Brexit effect beginning to hit. We will have over 20,000 visitors this year. That's not all international. About a quarter will be international, and we obviously would like to grow that. We're well supported locally for events, but you have to keep doing events to get people to come back.
WLR Sport.
A very good afternoon, I'm Gavin Whelan. Starting with soccer, and the man due to take up the role of interim CEO at the FAI has turned down the position. John Foley, the former Chief Executive of Athletics Ireland, was due to take over from Noel Mooney at the Football Association from today. Laura Donnelly reports.
In a statement issued this morning, the FAI says the board notes with great regret John Foley's decision not to accept the role of interim CEO. The organisation has been in crisis since details of a €100,000 loan from its former chief executive John Delaney emerged. Funding from Sport Ireland has been suspended for a number of months. The FAI today says throughout its dealings with John, his suitability for the role was beyond question, and the level of professionalism and clarity he could bring to the association would have been invaluable. It says John's experience and influence will be especially missed by the staff, who would have benefited greatly from his arrival. The board of the FAI says it will now meet to discuss the next steps.
Watford have confirmed that Hayden Mullins will take charge of their game against Leicester City on Wednesday night. The club's youth team boss will be assisted by the Academy's goalkeeping coach Graham Stack. The Premier League's bottom team sacked Quique Sanchez-Flores yesterday, ending his second spell in charge after just 85 days. Gaelic Games Dublin County Board Chairman Sean Shanley has denied former manager Pat Gilroy will be given first refusal to succeed Jim Gavin. It was reported this morning that the 2011 All-Ireland football winning coach would be afforded the role, but Dublin GAA have denied this is the case. Gavin resigned from his post on Saturday afternoon after leading the county to an unprecedented 5 All-Ireland titles in a row. His decision to step aside came as a shock to the county board, but Shanley says he's pleased that Gavin didn't make the decision lightly.
Generally in Dublin we put a man in charge, he's manager and he manages, and that's it. Away he goes. It's only when he has problems or we have problems that we'd have to sit down and talk. But no, Jim just did his job, and I suppose without anyone speculating or anything else, he waited till he had his mind definitely made up and then decided it was time to hand over, and that's what he did.
We'll be getting more reaction to Jim Gavin stepping down from former Waterford football manager Tom McGlinchey, who will join us on this evening's On the Ball from 6:10 here on WLR. And finally, for now, to news of snooker. It's third round day at the UK Championship in York. Ulsterman Mark Allen is in action in the evening session with last year's beaten finalist taking on England's Ben Wollaston. Among the afternoon games, world champion Judd Trump goes up against veteran Nigel Bond. All of those games are the best of 11 frames. That's the latest on WLR. Our next bulletin is at